Hi, my name is Smarty, a co-founder of Smarty Marketing. I'm also an SEO for about 20 years now. I stopped counting the years a few years ago, but I guess it's about 20 years, maybe a little more. And today with me is our social media manager, April. She's also our infographic promoter, designer, has a lot of roles. Thank you so much, April, for that and for being here as well. Today, we are going to discuss my latest newsletter episode. I publish my newsletter on LinkedIn every Tuesday. Please check it out. It's on my wall on LinkedIn and Swati. And every Tuesday, I publish something on SEO and or AI. So the topics are always something that up to date and something trending as well. I explain Google algorithms. I explain how to use AI for SEO and how not to use AI for SEO, what to do if you got hit by any update, things like that. I also do cool tool roundups like I did last Tuesday for YouTube. So it's very diverse, usually has something to do with SEO, but sometimes there are more generic marketing topics that are interesting enough. So check it out. Do subscribe to it if you like it, and then you will get an update every Tuesday from me. And today's topic is how to use ChatGPT for competitive analysis. And the interesting part here is ChatGPT is best for that. If we compare Gemini, Google's latest AI platform, and ChatGPT, for some reason, I find ChatGPT that it knows more than Gemini. Gemini is more about writing content or providing explanation on some topics or giving insight in some angle, but it doesn't know much for some reason. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe they had some issues with using Google's index for this particular project. I haven't researched that yet. But ChatGPT knows a lot, and it's very up to date, especially if you go pro with it and use the latest version of ChatGPT. It knows more and more every month. So asking it about even our company, like it's very new, it already knows about it. So it's very up to date. For some reason, it's getting much more knowledge base than Google's project, which doesn't make sense to me personally, but I think they have some reasons for that. So using ChatGPT for competitive analysis makes sense on several levels. First of all, it lets you know more about your competitors, and I'll explain with my prompts as well. And secondly, you need to know what ChatGPT knows, because more and more people are going to use it for product discovery, for company recommendations, for finding people to reach out to finding leads. So more and more people are going to search ChatGPT just like they are searching Google right now. And that is a growing trend. So you need to know what it knows about not just you, but your competitors as well, and how they are positioned in that knowledge base as well. Knowing that will help you for product development, for optimization as well. At some point, we will have strategy for ChatGPT optimization, just like we have one for Google. And this is a good way to kind of start preparing for that future and understanding what it takes to be in ChatGPT knowledge base and how to position yourself or your company or your products in that knowledge base. So the earlier you start, the better you will be prepared for those new product discovery and searching behaviors that are going to happen gradually, but that's the future for sure. So using ChatGPT for competitive analysis, do ask what your competitors are. Just give your brand name and get ChatGPT's ideas what the list of competitors are. And I was trying that with different companies, big and small, and it's always very spot on from what I can tell. It will also not just list your competitors, but explain. Or you can ask, prompt it to explain why it picked those competitors, and because there are usually many more than that it would pick, and it will explain to you how it knows about those companies, and how it founded them, and things like that. So it's interesting insight into what ChatGPT knows about you as well, because by based on what it picks as your competitors, it's the angles that ChatGPT knows about you and your company as well. So start by that. Then ask how they are better, worse, on how they are different from your company. If ChatGPT doesn't know the answer, it would search for it. It's fine. But if it doesn't search, then you know that is it using its knowledge base, which is also a good way to better understand what it knows and what it doesn't know. So ask about things like strong or weak points of my competitors. How do I compare? What I should be doing better to be better than competitors, for example, or um, ask all sorts of questions to help you understand why and how you are positioned is in ChatGPT knowledge base, as compared to your competitors, for example. We can also ask if you and your competitors have different audiences, or some different audience, like do they cater to younger people or more professionals? I, for example, asked how SEMrush and Moz are different, because I was researching, as a test, I was researching Moz competitors. So one of them was obviously SEMrush, or SEMrush. I'm sorry, they insist on being called SEMrush. So I asked ChatGPT how they compare, because they do have very similar features, but it looks like they have different audiences. And ChatGPT agreed with me that they do have different audiences. That Moz is more for businesses who don't know much about SEO and don't need to go too deep, but they need help in understanding their rankings, or how they are moving in SERPs, and how other keywords they need to use. So with that part, they do a very good job. But SEMrush is more for agencies, for professionals, because they have much deeper tools, and they provide much better insight in some areas, like backlinks, for example, or keyword gaps, or keyword difficulty, things like that. And I found it very true. So if you come to think about that, even if you look at mass forums or communities, you will notice that there are many people who do not necessarily know much about SEO. They're not professionals. Whereas if you compare that to SEMrush audience, they cater to much more SEO expertise, because their tools are very, very complicated unless you know SEO. So it's an interesting insight, and I found it very interesting that ChatGPT knew about that. I even asked how they knew about that, how it knew about that that comparison, and it would say something like, "I compared customer reviews," which is another prompt that you should consider. So one thing you can do is to ask it, how does my social proof compare to the social proof of this competitor, for example, or all of them? And this is another great insight into their weak points and your weak points, or your strong points, what you need to emphasize in your marketing, and how you can compare yourself in your content marketing strategy, how you can highlight better points from your customer reviews, for example. So this is also a great idea. So and the one, I feel like, analyzing social proof, or you can also ask how to reposition your product, how to highlight your stronger points. And in many cases, it it wouldn't be a very deep insight into what you need to do, but it could give you some direction. I asked that question about Moz, how they can reposition themselves to cater to a more knowledgeable audience, for example. And ChatGPT came up with quite a few good ideas that they need to talk more about their advanced features, talk more about even the blog is fine, and ChatGPT thought so too, that their blog is very insightful, but they don't talk enough about their tools. When they post an article on the blog, it doesn't always even mention their actual tools. So they don't put enough context around their own tools. So people don't know how better to utilize them, for which advanced SEO tasks they can be used. And that is a missing point in their marketing strategy, which I also agree with. So that was a very interesting exercise. Now, to wrap up, I'm sure there are many more prompts here. I listed a few of my favorite ones, but I also have a tool which I was very happy to discover. It's called AI, what is called, give me just 1 second, Track AI Answers. So what it does is you give your name, your brand name there, or in my case, that was my personal brand name, and ask it to search ChatGPT and Gemini, and also they support Bing Chat, but I think it's almost the same as ChatGPT. So you ask that tool to find out what those tools know about you. But it's not just that. The tool will ask those AI platforms the same question on a regular basis, and it will alert you once those tools know more about you. So it's kind of, if you do some marketing, or if you are marketing strategy, it's another way to now evaluate how good you are doing in terms of letting AI platforms, as long as people know more about your brand or your personal brand or your product. So instead of doing that manually, you can just put those keywords in that tool, and the tool will ask AI platforms on a regular basis and let you know how that knowledge grows about you, about your products. So that's something cool. And also, they have a separate section where you can track questions that are relevant to your product. For example, I asked who are the top SEO experts, and that tool sent that question to ChatGPT and Gemini. And now I know what that list is. And even they would also as well ask that question on a regular basis and give you a graph as to what the rankings of those SEO experts in those AI knowledge bases, how they're changing. For example, I don't know, Rand Fishkin was the first top SEO expert in ChatGPT's opinion, and now he's third. So not only it's an interesting insight into how that changes. So ideally you want to be the first, and you want your marketing to reflect that. But it's also interesting, I found it quite interesting that they're not as diverse. So we would think that our customers, one of our customers asks that question and has one list, and another customer will have a different list, because ChatGPT always create dynamic answers that are never the same. But it looks like they would always give you almost the same question, just worded differently. So those rankings are pretty much the same from month to month as the tool is asking that question. Those are the same people being recommended through those AI answers, which is also interesting. So definitely a great tool. I don't know why it's the only tool that does that job at this point. I would imagine that many big players that help with brand monitoring or even rankings monitoring will be adding this feature at very soon, because people are using AI platforms. So brands do need to know how they are positioned and what those AI platforms know about them and things like that. But no, it's the only tool I could find that is currently doing that, and I found it a great idea and a great tool as well. So definitely check it out. Again, I already forgot its name. It's Track AI Answers. And it's pretty cool. It does give you free searches so you can get a feel of what it looks like. But if you want the tool to track everything that you type, then you have to pay, which is I think very fair because they are using all those paid APIs and things like that. But it's a cool tool. Was very excited to find it. I feel like I will probably come across more tools like that in the near future. But for now, it's very well implemented. Check it out. And with that, April, do you have any questions or ideas or insights for us?
Like, what would you recommend not using AI for when it comes to competitive analysis?
Well, I would definitely not recommend relying too much on what it tells you, because in many ways you have to kind of ask it many questions to get really deep insights. And even then, like I asked with that example, I asked what Moz should be doing, and it listed like 10 tactics that Moz could be implementing, and only one of them made really good sense to me when it said that write blog more about your tools and put more advanced context around your own tools. Other nine ideas were very generic, like post more on social media. I don't know, reach out to experts and ask them to test your tools and provide feedback. So most of them were very, very generic and very obvious, I would say. So it definitely is a good exercise, but you have to filter what it says and really find some nuggets there instead of just taking everything seriously on what they're saying. So it's going to be a mix of very generic answers, but sometimes there is a good idea somewhere inside. So that's my feedback so far. I'm pretty sure it's going to get better and better. It's already very good. Like I said, I found quite a few really good ideas there, but it's not like all of them were good. Most of them were very generic.
It's really interesting that you found out about how Google recognizes the difference between Moz and SEMrush as far as like expertise goes and whatnot. That's really cool.
I know. I was pretty surprised there as well. And for testing, I feel like if you're watching us now, if you test that prompt in ChatGPT, please do share ideas, examples as well. I would love to test more companies. Unfortunately, I don't know much about other companies. I know Mars, SEMrush, Ahrefs. I know how to compare them myself, so I have that insight. But I wouldn't be able to compare things like Amazon and eBay because I don't know much about the differences there. So if you test it out, please provide some examples. I would love to play with it more and compare more companies and see what ChatGPT knows about them.
We're all learning AI together. So that's the fun part.
Exactly. Well,
Might be a silly question, but you said silly. Sorry, it might be a silly question, but you said social proof before. What does social proof mean?
uh, the customers reviews, but it's also not just customer reviews on things like Yelp and Trust radios or something like that. It's also ideally includes social media feedback as well, like what people are saying about that brand on Twitter. That's why I use more generic term social proof instead of customer reviews, because customer reviews to me is just those platforms that people share their feedback. So it's more like sentiment, overall sentiment about a company, including social media, any platforms, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, so everything. I feel like we may be done here. Oh, okay. I do you have any other?
Well, actually, yeah, I can hear you now. One question that popped into my head was like as you're searching your company and putting inputting information about it into AI tools, do the AI tools like gather that information? Like, does it help AI get to know your company more?
I've been wondering about the same thing for many months now. I think probably what they are saying is that they are being taught, but by how people are using them, what they are asking, their feedback on every answer. Like there is the option to provide feedback. So their algorithms were using that behavior to become better. But I don't think they ever mentioned if they save that information and kind of use it more. What I know is that ChatGPT is coming out with a memory function, so it can memorize your questions and its answers. It's not public for everyone yet. I checked maybe yesterday if I'm part of that experiment, but I'm not. So I cannot test it. But this is if you can enable or disable the memory, it's beneficial to you because if you use the memory, ChatGPT will know more about your preferences, your company, what your tool is doing, what your product looks like, because you will ask those questions, so it will memorize that. But whether they are going to use that memory elsewhere, not just for you, I don't think it's clear yet. So it's still an experiment. So to your question, I feel like the answer is not yet, but it's probably coming with that memory feature that they are introducing. It's probably going to be one of the aspects of ChatGPT to know more about things and what people ask and products and companies as well. So at that point, every employee will have to ask ChatGPT about your company and then also provide yes, yes, keep to every day. So but I don't think it's
I was just wondering if like there's an advantage to be using it and talking about your company with it. I guess there's
I feel like it's yeah, it's the future because I don't think they are introducing that feature for people for users only. I feel like they're trying to get more information, which is dynamic, so that it's not just the web or like crawling they can rely on, but also on what their users are telling ChatGPT. But I don't think they have that disclaimer yet in place that we're going to use your memory elsewhere, which I think it probably is something they are working on anyways.
interesting. This was like a really informative discuss. Like I learned a lot about how to use it for competitor analysis, and just interesting.
And there are so many more. Yeah, there are so many more uses for ChatGPT. So I'm always excited to discover new ones. So if you ever have ideas or ever any of our listeners or any of our viewers or participants have any ideas, we would love to hear them. How are you using ChatGPT for marketing, productivity, for anything, basically? I know everyone is using it to generate content or at least test it for content generation. And everyone this is the biggest topic in the marketing world is how to use ChatGPT to create content, which is one topic I'm least excited about. I don't think it's the future of marketing by any means. I don't think it's going to be a long-term strategy. Not because I don't think it's unethical. I just think it's if everyone is doing that, then oh yeah, how do you stand out? So it's just in the long term, it's not a very smart thing to do. Of course, you can generate content, generic content, I would say, like for example, press release or any type of disclaimer or I don't know, product description. Things like that can be generated with ChatGPT, but when it comes to creative content, expertise driven, and things like that, I don't see the future for that in ChatGPT. But there are so many other ways to use it, which is exciting. So if you're using it in any way, please let us know. I'm always for more ideas to how I can utilize those cool shiny AI tools that we have now.